The Marvel Cinematic Universe has performed many feats throughout its history for defying the odds at every corner, managing to take heroes and characters not quite up to the top tier standards we're used to, such as Thor, Guardians of the Galaxy, even Ant-Man, and raising them to a higher pedestal in the eyes of the public. To the point there was so much cheer and acclaim by the time we reached the end of that first saga back in 2019 in Avengers Endgame. Largely, the decision to focus on the lesser tier characters came from all the restrictions placed upon them while they were developing the story for that first saga. Being locked out at fully using Spider-Man by Sony until 2016, and being completely shut off from using the X-Men and the Fantastic Four by Fox. Those restraints affected those companies as well, as they had to isolate their characters in larger, smaller worlds to various degrees of success. But surprisingly, there was a character from Fox's roster that was completely shocking on all fronts. One that came in and completely changed the landscape of how you can make a comic book movie in the modern day. Bringing R-rated comic book movies to the mainstream, Deadpool with his first 2 movies over at Fox came shockingly in terms of how the audience and how the box office reacted to both of those films. And after 6 years away, Marvel Studios had to call upon the Merc with the Mouth, as well as bring back one of the OGs that kickstarted the modern Marvel movie way to resuscitate a very shaky MCU at the time. Of course, in style. This is after the theater for Marvel Studios' Deadpool and Wolverine. When it comes to the actual specifics to how we got here, it all began back in 2019 when Disney as a whole announced that they were going to be purchasing 20th Century Fox for a whopping $73 billion. While many people had all sorts of reactions to how this would affect the industry, uniqueness of products, competition in film, all Marvel fans really cared about is that this was finally the closest way that we would get to having a complete MCU as a whole. Since Fox owned the rights to a big chunk of these characters for so long that Marvel Studios couldn't touch upon, this would be the key to bringing them home for a proper adaptation. But they already had their original planned multiverse saga largely in motion by that point with established MCU characters as well as the future new ones that were set to take center stage at the time. Only being able to bring back legacy characters in either special roles or in cameos and mini-bursts, such as Patrick Stewart's Professor X and a Mr. Fantastic variant in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness to demonstrate that planned usage. However, as Phase 4 to then Phase 5 was releasing either in theaters or on Disney+, the big boom in content began to start to affect the overall quality within the MCU as a whole. Going back to the actual film, Ryan Reynolds was already hard at work at developing a Marvel Studios Deadpool film since the acquisition of Fox was completed, because they all knew that there was so much potential in this project. Which connects to why this film took so long to be made, which was only important to connect with the story that they were trying to develop and make sure that the audience was going to be able to enjoy it. Thankfully, by the time they cracked the story was around the same time Hugh Jackman decided to return as the Wolverine character after playing him originally for 17 years before he decided to retire, only mainly for the reason to get to see these two characters interact on the big screen. Alongside director Sean Levy, the trio worked hard to make sure these characters fit into the larger MCU in the right, proper, and true way, ending up to be fave as the film was released at the right time that it needed to be. The film was the sole primetime release for the company for the summer of 2024, only in theaters. As the hype-up fanfare, the Marvel Studios logo transitions back to the world of Deadpool, 6 years after the events of Deadpool 2, 5 years later, in which he arrives where Logan from 2017 left off with a set grave for the original Wolverine we all know and love, being digged up. Taking treasure from a dead man sure has a new meaning here. Wade Wilson, needing to find his universe's Logan in hopes of saving the larger universe, finds solace in sheer disappointment on the officially dead Weapon X. Follows up his anger by expressing it through dance in one of the best opening scenes for any Marvel movie yet, in which in traditional, we start a little bit later in the story to go back to the past to explain how did we get here, plot-telling devices as we know and love from him to kick off the story that would definitely teach Deadpool that he is much more valuable for the larger multiverse and for his own self. The story itself has a lot going on, yet feels streamlined to focus on our two titular characters. I'm going to make a lot of comparisons to the last similar film of this caliber in Spider-Man No Way Home, where despite the multiversal component being important, the legacy appearances from the past characters to how much pre-established MCU lore that had to be noted to understand the film present, it still managed to focus on our main heroes and how the events of the story are impacting them, as well as focusing on what's going on in the present moment. Even they joke about that here when Wade meets with the TVA for the first time, allowing the primary story to be fully in focus without having to tease the next one. It's how this film and No Way Home managed to thrive where Multiverse of Madness and Quantumania fell short on. As much as the MCU has thrived on connective storytelling, there comes moments where you have to just focus on the film you're making rather than the film that comes out next. Wade Wilson, who is still the main hero despite sharing the spotlight, continues his core story properly with some minor leaps of faith. Obviously having to take advantage that proper Marvel Studios characters are finally up for grabs, and acknowledging that it has been some time since the events of Deadpool 2, in which his failure to be an Avenger, whether it's a real life joke that he won't be for now, or just trying to give him the kicker for his new storyline, it does leave him down a path of uncertainty of his own life outside of being Deadpool. Him becoming a car sales rep to make a proper living while having to also go back to that Deadpool 1 type of mindset in which his self-doubts overtake him. Which honestly has been a little bit of symbolism for him, as even if it's the Wade face or the Deadpool mask, he's mostly himself, but he gets to kind of go away from the problems of Wilson to go off and do something else to get his mind off things. To where by the time he does have to face the truth of the matter, he uses jokes and his personality to move the subject or the plotline along. Which makes it a perfect pairing to Wolverine's placement in the story, acting as a serious yet no shit-taking type of person to put Wade in his place. For a bit of understanding, this is not the same developmental Wolverine we met in the mainline film from Fox, but rather a new variant that is more savage and even more blunt than the original take. At the same time, he's also going through his own struggles, having failed his team of X-Men in his universe and living in regret since then. Taking it out on Wade in both his personality and his frustrations with his failures in his own life. Even with the fourth wall breaking acknowledgement of things, these two are in vastly yet similar positions in their lives, and they need each other to push each other back into new and better places, by taking a very long time to get to that point of understanding the other properly. I do want to take a second to admire the acting levels of these two, which is a debatable topic for comic book movies even still to now, but Ryan Reynolds continues to be the perfect Deadpool, having the comedic chops most of the time and still being able to be vulnerable with his own spin on it. As well with the highest remarks to Hugh Jackman, who manages to maintain the same energy as he's done before with his past iteration of the character, but adding more layers similar to the work he's done on Logan. Especially the car scene moment, which was one of the most directly damaging moments I've seen in a long while with just words alone. And the suits, come on, finally seeing all the fan art come to life. Like, if we never got him again after this for sure, this would have been the best fandom way to end off his run of the character. But thank God he's not done just quite yet. Performance-wise, I do believe Emma Corrin and Matthew McFadden do a really good job at portraying their characters. I don't think these were the worst villains in a comic book movie, but they're also not high up there. Morally having to do a few jumping with strings to understand where they're coming from. Paradox being just wanting to end Wade's universe for the sake of being able to do the next thing he wants to do wasn't really the best motivation. I just took it as him being bored with things and needing to accelerate his immortal-ish life forward. Cassandra Nova being the winner of recent creepy powers user in recent films doesn't really have too much beyond being nearly killed Professor X while in the room together, which is kind of a weird origin story to be frank with you. I do get punished by the TVA and the multiverse for all that she had to endure for, but with so much of the storyline being focused on just Wade and Logan, not really seeing what she had to endure was lacking to ace the clinch for her. Continuing to now the mix, in terms of the Deadpool series, it was a bit saddening to see the people closest to Deadpool's life only having the minimum involvement here in the beginning and towards the end of the film. I understand the elevated stakes here that there was never going to be a legitimate reason to keep them all around, similar to how No Way Home handled the other Midtown characters from the last two films as well. Sure, you of course know what Wade is fighting for here, but it still doesn't take anything away to give them a little bit more time for them. At least Vanessa and Peter got a little bit of something here, one in being a little bit unneeded to break off Wade and Vanessa before the story began, but Peter, man, he just knows how to take up a scene. By the way, how dare that Bedlam or Domino was not part of that party scene. My boy Terry Crews deserves better than that. It did even out somewhat with our surprise appearances, being in no special order here, which is Jennifer Garner as Elektra, Wesley Snipes as Blade, Daffy Keane as X-23, Chris Evans back as the Human Torch, and giving Channing Tatum the role he's worked so hard for to get for many years. Now, I will say, unlike No Way Home's approach to the Legacy Returns, here it had all sorts of different agendas, but the end results were lovely to say the least. Sure, Evans' return was needed to bring back some of the MCU fans that left post-Endgame and giving him another go of the character since 2007. Keen to give an older view on the effects of Logan, even if the timelines here are a little bit confusing. Snipes and Gardner were here just to give another perspective to the other side of the Marvel films from the early 2000s, and the biggest glee of all for Tatum to finally show off the work he did preparing for this character was honestly the best gift anyone can give him. The thing that really does work is by the end of the day, the real connection Wade and Logan had with each other, being two sides of a very similar coin. Wade having to learn here to fully believe in himself without the need of validation from other people, and Logan truly learning to move past his mistakes and embrace something totally different here. Sure, the multiverse is cool to still see somewhat, the references galore is super fun to find on repeat viewing, and seeing an army of Deadpool variants, not quite what I was fully expecting, but yet those pale to comparison for the real lesson here, of becoming the better version of yourself. No matter where you are in life, it's never too late to find your purpose, as well as to give a valid reason for eventually Deadpool Wolverine to go off into proper MCU meetups someday soon. That's going to be the real icing on the cake. Deadpool Wolverine upon release showcased that while yes, this was nostalgia babe cranked up to 10, that you can still have a great film when you have actual purpose behind it. Not only managing to bring Deadpool into the larger Marvel pond, but also with the next proper step for his character. And giving Hugh Jackman even more diversity with a character he's called his own for the last 2 decades. When I saw this film in theaters with my partner and my friend, I was invested deeply in a way I haven't felt since No Way Home. In both humor and depth, this was truly a film that juggled so much, yet it still managed to accomplish nearly everything that it set out to do. With that said, I give this film my ranking of 4.5 out of 5 stars, or my personal ranking of a large popcorn, a soda, and some chicken tenders, because they're yummy. Let me know down below, what did you think of Marvel Studios' Deadpool Wolverine? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you like it? Let me know down below. I would love to have a conversation with you about it. But I believe that's going to do it for me today, everyone. This has been After the Theater from ActionX. Thank you so much for watching this episode. If you want to see more, please subscribe to us only here on ActionX. Like, favorite, share this review if you want to. Follow us on social media to be up to date, and ring that bell for notifications when our next video is live. But until we see each other again, thank you so much for watching. Please stay safe out there, be good to each other, and as always, peace out.